Hi. This is Jordan Helmosman, science writer, founder, and prime ideological formulator of the YouTube channel known as Earth Under Emergency. Let's talk about the need to get rid of fossil fuels. Former President Richard Nixon once referred to environmentalists as people who wanted to go back to the jungle and live like animals. He said this at a meeting with executives from some of the top automotive companies. I'd like to say that I'm proud to be one of the people he was talking about, but I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I don't want to return to the days of cavemen or live in a jungle. As a child, I always loved the idea of tropical rainforests, but I was also a reader of science fiction and also admired the idea of technologically advanced cities. As a writer of science fiction, my ideal geographical setting, and a place I wouldn't mind living in, would be a futuristic city surrounded by rings of tropical rainforests in which there were advanced systems by which the city and the rainforests mutually nurtured each other. What I'm trying to say is that technology can and should be used to preserve and restore the healthy greenery of forest ecosystems and precious wildlife, so that we have a healthy planet with a balance. Anything that damages life on the planet and interferes with the ability of the planet to support life must be replaced by something more advanced, and this should be done as quickly as possible. Any so-called technology that poisons the planet should be considered primitive and should be shunned and forbidden. Fossil fuels produce large amounts of greenhouse gases. A greenhouse gas is one which traps heat in the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. The main types of fossil fuels are oil, coal, and natural gas. Oil and coal produce CO2, and natural gas is a source of methane. Air pollution from fossil fuels includes at least 187 toxic substances. Some toxic air pollution comes from active oil and gas wells. One of these substances is a cyclic organic compound known as benzene. The effects of this compound have been linked to childhood leukemia and blood disorders. Another is formaldehyde, which has cancer-causing byproducts. Burning coal produces toxic airborne particulate matter from coal-powered plants, which includes SO2 and nitrogen oxides as well as carbon monoxide. Burning fossil fuels fills the air with smog. It also causes acid rain, which damages trees. Forests are major stores of carbon. Trees and other plants take in CO2 from the atmosphere. Through photosynthesis, plants use CO2 to form sugars. Eventually, they produce protein, fat, and antioxidants. An overabundance of CO2 can interfere with a plant's production of other nutrients. When CO2 is excessively high, less water is released. Experimental evidence is showing that excessive CO2 in the atmosphere will make it difficult to produce wheat, rice, corn, and soybeans. The possible effects of substances from fossil fuels that pollute water include typhoid, cholera, hepatitis, diarrhea, and cancer. It also increases the risk of a wound becoming infected or could lead to ear, nose, throat, or lung infection. Oil spills harm the flora and fauna of the ocean, destroy beaches, and render seafood unfit to eat. Oil is extremely dangerous to wildlife. In marine mammals, it can produce heavy lung congestion and stomach ulcerations. It can cause damaged airways, emphysema, hemorrhaging, eye lesions, and lesions of the skin. It destroys the ability of the fur to insulate the animal against extreme temperatures and damages the ability of birds' feathers to repel water. The Exxon Valdez oil spill, which occurred on March 24, 1989, put almost 11 million gallons of oil into the ocean close to Alaska. It affected not just the ocean but the coastline as well. This spill was the second largest oil spill in history and killed over 300,000 birds, over 3,000 sea otters, and about 200 harbor seals. Doesn't that piss you off? Nitrous oxide is used in growing crops with nitrogen-based fertilizers. Generally, nitrogen oxides cause rapid burning spasms, swelling tissues in the throat and upper respiratory tract, reduced oxygenation of body tissues, buildup of fluid in the lungs, and death. Mercury compounds have adverse effects on the central nervous system. In animals, there have been reports of deleterious effects on testicles and kidneys. It can adversely affect both the nervous systems and respiratory systems of humans and wildlife. Many birds that eat fish are affected. Sulfur dioxide irritates the skin and mucous membranes of the eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. High concentrations of SO2 can cause inflammation and irritation of the respiratory system. Besides contributing to air and water pollution, the processes of acquiring fossil fuels damages the land, especially from forest ecosystems. Trees are removed and burned. This does severe damage to ecosystems and forces wildlife to leave the areas they have been living in. There are two ways that coal is extracted: underground mining and surface mining, which is commonly known as strip mining. The damage to land from underground mining can be tension cracks, mass wasting, which can make an entire basin unstable, flooding, and sinkholes. Flooding occurs after a new subsidence basin formed by the mining activity builds up and dams upstream water. The stream water builds up and eventually breaks through. Strip mining, which removes coal from the surface, is even more destructive. This form of mining destroys ecosystems by removing vegetation, and the removal of vegetation leads to the lack of absorption of rainfall, which leads to flooding and impoundment of waste into the flow of water, that leads to pollution of bodies of water that lead ultimately to the ocean. The procedure involves drilling and blasting. The holes made by the drills are filled with explosives. The strip mining procedure produces residues called mine spoils and mine tailings. Mine tailings are crushed rock with minerals other than the ones of interest, and are pumped back into the environment. This eventually leads to chemical pollution of bodies of water that do extensive damage to the ecosystems in these bodies of water. Often metals such as copper, silver, or lead ores are present. It has been found that oxidation of these metals causes the release of sulfuric acid into the environment. Sulfuric acid is a strong acid and will badly burn both plant tissues and animal tissues. It has long-term toxicity to aquatic life. Sulfuric acid can even get into the atmosphere as particles or droplets. Let's review the damage from strip mining. Strip mining clears trees, plants, and topsoil. It damages forests, wildlife habitats, and surrounding environments. It causes soil erosion. The loose soil can cause water pollution. It reduces the fertility of the soil. Satellite images are now confirming this. The air gets polluted. Toxic chemicals and heavy metals leach into rivers, streams, and lakes or get dumped straight into the ocean. In Florida, an organization that was dedicated to preserving orchards and protecting rainforests somehow got into bed with a fertilizer and mining company that has been engaging in phosphate strip mining, and this is doing permanent damage to Florida ecosystems. A particularly horrible practice that is used to obtain fossil fuels is known as fracking. We must get rid of this. First of all, fracking uses a lot of water because it needs a continuous flow of water at high pressure. This amounts to about 500 million gallons for each well. It's called hydraulic fracturing because the water pressure is used to break up deposits of shale. It also uses up a combination of toxic organic compounds, which end up in the water, of course. FES include methane, benzene, naphthalene, and trimethylbenzene. This causes water pollution on unprecedented levels. If fracking is permitted to continue, it will expand and generate more opportunities for disaster. There are many types of plants and processing facilities that fracking requires: gas plants, pipelines, compressor stations, processing plants. A compressor station is a large facility set up to maintain the pressure of natural gas in order to keep it flowing through a pipeline. A company that runs the Algonquin gas transmission pipeline has recently proposed to set up a new compressor station in Weymouth, Massachusetts. The pipeline transports natural gas from New Jersey through Connecticut and Rhode Island and finally into Massachusetts. The pipelines will most likely leak and cause extensive damage. Pipelines have spilled jet fuel, liquefied gases, propane, diesel, gasoline, liquid natural gas, and oil. Cleanup of pipelines is usually never completed. Many barrels of oil are left polluting the environment. Koch Industries and the big oil companies funded propaganda to bamboozle the public into believing that climate change either wasn't serious, wasn't caused by human activity or industrial excesses, or wasn't solvable. This is known as the fossil fuels lobby, and it has done a great disservice to the American public and to the rest of the world. Koch Industries is essentially the arm of the oil industry reaching back to lobby and influence our government in order to keep Republicans in power that will keep giving the industry a pass to continue destroying the planet. The Koch PAC is a major contributor to Republicans. They have a subsidiary that processes 300 million barrels of oil. The actions of Koch Industries has resulted in the emission of over 300 million tons of greenhouse gases per year. It's up there with Exxon and Chevron in terms of greenhouse gas pollution, or billions of dollars. For an excellent presentation of graphical data backing all of this up, please see the following website: https://ourworldandata.org/greenhouse-gas-emissions. We must overturn the deregulation policies of Trump's EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. He sought to revoke what is known as the endangerment finding of 2009, which made a statement about the need to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. In our introductory statement, I mentioned the Trump administration's efforts to repeal 100 environmental regulations set up by the Obama administration. I believe this is part of that. I am proud to say that I have learned from a prominent environmental organization, the NRDC, National Resources Defense Council, that Rabbi Daniel Swartz of Pennsylvania wrote an article in the Scranton Times-Tribune letting know what Pruitt was up to. He stated that Pruitt's actions were aimed at overturning the EPA's ability to protect public health and natural resources, and to overturn protections meant to secure clean air and water. This is in accord with the Trump administration's attempt to reverse the 100 environmental regulations set up by the Obama administration. The New York Times has been keeping track of this. Scott Pruitt, who did a lot of damage, was replaced by Andrew Wheeler, a former coal lobbyist, and who worked as an aide to Senator James Inhofe, who has always been a climate change denier. Inhofe is obviously ignorant of science, and has been arguing against being concerned about the environment for years. Andrew Wheeler, whose occupation of the EPA was a mockery of the environment, as was his predecessor, and Senator Inhofe, Andrew Wheeler concocted a phony problem to accuse Gavin Newsom of. We must keep these type of people away from any powerful position in the government. They will interrupt efforts to clean and repair the planet and bring us